Good morning, good afternoon. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, and colleagues,
You are speaking, then
good
that
morning.
time.
Welcome
So I'm
to this
Yeah.
side event
Yeah.
on the critical topic of
that's-
science diplomacy for glacier preservation and transboundary water resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. I'm Anshuman Verma. I'm the Economic Affairs Officer, the Environment and Development Division at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or ESCAP. So on behalf of the co-organizers of this side event, ICIMOD, Asia Pacific Water Forum, ESCAP, Clean Air Fund, UNESCO Chair in Mountain Water Sustainability, and the Small Earth Nepal. It's a pleasure and an honor to open this important dialogue organized under the aegis of Taskforce 2 of the International Year of Glaciers Preservation, whose efforts have brought together a powerful coalition of partners for this event. The Hindu Kush Himalaya region, encompassing all of the world's mountain peaks above 7,000 meters in height, has 60,000 square kilometers of its area covered by glaciers. These glaciers represent frozen reservoirs of fresh water that feed major river basins across Asia and sustain ecosystems, agriculture, energy systems, and livelihoods in countries across the continent. But today, these glaciers are retreating at an alarming pace due to rising temperatures, black carbon emissions, and disrupted weather systems, creating cascading risks that know no political borders. Droughts and floods are becoming more frequent and unpredictable, and we are on track to witness a threefold increase in the risk of glacial lake outburst floods GLOFs in the coming decades. Yet only a small fraction of glacial lakes are monitored. Communities across the Hindu Kush Himalayas, many of them remote and underserved, are increasingly vulnerable, and regional cooperation lags behind the scale of the challenge. And this is where science diplomacy becomes indispensable. Science diplomacy offers a bridge between knowledge and action across disciplines and borders. It allows us to connect scientists and policymakers to align national agendas with regional resilience goals and to build trust where politics alone could falter. By fostering open data sharing, joint research, and inclusive dialogue, science diplomacy creates the conditions for coordinated and successful action. Distinguished participants, Task Force 2 of the International Year of Glaciers Preservation has been actively contributing to the goals of the International Year. It brings together the expertise, experience, and networks of a range of committed partners. To mark the launch of the International Year in January this year, the task force came together to organize a key dialogue titled Glaciers at the Crossroads, Climate Challenges and Responses, which shared insights and highlighted cooperative strategies to boost climate resilience in areas affected by glacier melt. On its part, ESCAP is also supporting these efforts through multiple other ways and partnerships, including with Clean Air Fund, ICIMOD, and the Asia Pacific Water Forum. Moreover, on the initiative of Tajikistan, ESCAP member states have just adopted a new resolution at the 81st Commission session on strengthening cooperation on the water and climate change nexus, which explicitly raises concerns over the retreat of mountain glaciers, among other areas. To conclude, I believe this session provides a unique platform to highlight what is possible through our joint efforts. Let us use this space to listen and learn so we can lead and succeed. Let us recognize that science alone is not enough and policy alone may not be fast enough. But together, through science diplomacy, we can chart a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable future for the Hindu Kush Himalayas and beyond. Thank you, and I wish you a productive and inspiring session ahead. Thank you. So I think that concludes my segment of the remarks. And I would now like to invite Professor Shahbaz Khan from UNESCO and the Asia Pacific the Asia Pacific Water Forum Vice Governing Council Chair for his remarks as well.
Thank you very much, dear Anshuman. Dear colleagues, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen,
online and in Tajikistan. So it's certainly a great day that we have this side event at the 2025 Tajikistan High Level Conference. So, on behalf of the Asia Pacific Water Forum, represented here by me as the Vice Chair and also by Dr. Yumiko, and also on behalf of my office, UNESCO Regional Office for East Asia, this is a very important dialogue we welcome as part of the science diplomacy, which has been highlighted just now, for glacier preservation and transboundary water resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. It has been well known that this is a very important part of the world with its glaciers and very important water resource. And I don't need to count those numbers of the glaciers, but I would say it sustains the livelihood of nearly 2 billion people. And certainly it is the lifeline of those 2 billion people. And accelerating glacial melt, glacial lake outburst floods, seasonal flow imbalances are no more the rare kind of risks. They are unfolding before our eyes very, very frequently. So UNESCO, ICIMAD, ESCAP, and our partners have been working on the International Year of Glaciers Preservation 2025 and the Decade of Cryospheric Sciences 2025 to 2034. What we are doing is we are bringing integrated transboundary solutions. As a scientist, I can say science diplomacy, bridging knowledge, policy, and trust is more crucial than ever before. In UNESCO, we have Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, which is in its 9th phase. In fact, this year we are celebrating its 50 years. So we have open science recommendation for open hydrology. We are bringing young people, we are bringing indigenous knowledge holders to turn data into resilience and dialogue for cooperation. That's where the role of ECMOD is certainly very, very important. We need to invest into early warning systems more than ever before. Community-based adaptation, open knowledge platforms across borders, taking advantage of the recent movements of open data, open science, and bringing what is necessary to have digital platforms which can bring renowned actions and cooperation. And today certainly is the day for the flow of ideas, and we certainly wish that these rivers continue to flow, benefiting from the presence of these very important glaciers, and we have sustainable management of this very important area, which we'll be discussing. So on behalf of the Asia Pacific Water Forum, as the Vice Chair, welcome again as partners of this very important online and on-site event today. We are looking forward to the deliberations from esteemed panelists and looking forward to the recommendations which can guide the United Nations system and international organizations as well as national organizations. I thank you. Okay, back to you, dear Anshuman. Hello.
Thank you very much, Shabazz, for your remarks. And I think this brings us to the conclusion of the opening session. And now we will move to the next session in the program. And I would now like to invite our representative from ICIMOD for the keynote presentation. I'd pass on to Ms. Isabella Gaziel, the Deputy Director General of ICIMOD, for her keynote presentation. Over to you, please.
Do I need to listen?
You can use the word here.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you to all for joining. Am I audible to those who are online?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
I hope so. I assume that I will be audible. So firstly, thank you very much to all our partners for organizing this event here today in the pre-event to the International Conference on High-Level Conference on Glaciers here in Tajikistan. So I'm going to speak about science diplomacy for glacier preservation and transboundary water resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. And of course, we heard just earlier how important this region is. It is vast. It is the third pole. It contains the third largest ice mass after the Arctic and the Antarctic. It is also home to some of the world's greatest biodiversity, 3 of the world's biodiversity hotspots, and source to Asia's 10 largest rivers. But what is so important about this region is that it supports 1/4 of humanity. That's about 2 billion people. And yet this region, whilst it's of huge regional but also global importance, it is facing an accelerating crisis. So in terms of global warming, this region is warming 2 times faster than the global average. And of course, this has huge implications. Now, whilst I'm going to show you a set of slides now on various disasters that happened across the 2024 monsoon period. Of course, not all of these can be attributed directly to warming, but these are indicators of the kinds of events that will be happening across our region with increasing frequency, unpredictability, and intensity. Oh, sorry. So
you can minimize this one, yeah.
So you can see that these events have enormous impacts on human lives, as well as human safety, but also the investment that is going into the region. I don't need to speak to the figures as the slides speak for themselves. And so this region is facing a triple, but even quadruple planetary crisis. So you all know what the triple planetary crisis is, but this region is also facing significant demographic change, outmigration. So we have largely women, the elderly, and many other disadvantaged groups that have contributed least to the climate crisis that reside within these mountain areas. And they're living in close coincidence to more than 50,000 glaciers. And many of these glaciers have glacial lakes, which are at risk, of course, of breaching and causing huge downstream impacts. I don't know how many of you have seen the news from Switzerland, where there's been a significant glacial lake outburst just, I think, in the last 24 hours. Now, what is interesting in the Hindu Kush Himalayas is that only 28 of these 50,000 glaciers have field monitoring. That means we are unable to assess and ascertain where the greatest risks lie. We also have significant changes in snow cover. Snow is important because it actually feeds the spring meltwater flows and, of course, vital for irrigation for millions of farmers. Yet snow is coming with increasingly unpredictability and the snow lines are rising. And of course, permafrost above 4,500 meters, permafrost is critical. It affects ground stability, hydrology, infrastructure, vegetation, and carbon emissions. And of course, so what we're seeing in this region is a multi-hazard environment that is increasing in unpredictability. And here on the slides, you will see, and I want to point to people killed and economic losses, which are the major factors. So you'll see that it's storms and floods. And of course, earthquake, nothing to do with climate change, but of course, they are responsible for a large number of human deaths. But please note that it is largely water related in terms of the losses in the region. And of course, these events in our high mountains are cascading, they're interlinked across multiple, including where people settle, including biodiversity change, land use change, and many have transboundary impacts. So of course, within our region, this holds huge significance if water is flowing across borders and causing damage downstream. And so we estimate that about 1 billion people are at risk. And of course, it is largely women, children, elderly, and the disabled who are most affected, those who have contributed least to the climate crisis. And here you can just see in terms of where people are located, you can see across the region how densely it is populated and how those people are living in very close coincidence to the mountains out of which these disasters emanate. And of course, we know that many of the decisions made around how to manage these issues are made outside the mountain areas. And so ICIMOD, the International Centre for Integrated Mountain Development, we are constituted by the 8 countries of the Hindu Kush Himalaya. So they constitute our governing board. And we are, and as you will see, out of these 8 countries, which countries have significant proportions of their land surface covered by mountains. And of course, on the right-hand side of the slide, you will see that we also hold many of the world's highest peaks. And so who is ICIMOD? We are a regional organization. We hold intergovernmental status, but we are largely a knowledge and learning center. And this is where I'm going to come to what we're doing around science diplomacy. So you will see these are our 3 strategic groups, our 3 focus areas. But in terms of what we're doing around regional science diplomacy, so at a river basin level, as I mentioned, we have 10 of Asia's largest rivers. We have constituted together with our countries 3 basin networks. And these are science-based networks which look at what is the evidence for more effective management of these river basins. So we have the Upper Indus Basin Network, Afghanistan, China, India, Pakistan. We have the Yarlung Tsangbo Brahmaputra Basin Network, and that's Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and China, and the Ganges Basin Initiative, which is Nepal, India, and China. And we have recently been awarded a project supported by the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Japan, where we're going to be looking from source to see on how we can more effectively manage this basin. We also convene and bring together thematic knowledge hub. We have the HRR, the HKH DRR knowledge hub, which we bring together DRR experts from across the region, and the HKH Cryo Hub, which again brings together cryosphere specialists from across the region to debate particularly what is the evidence on what works and what needs to be done, and how we can bring together the countries in a more perspective on these issues. And we also, through these hubs and with these hubs, develop scientific assessments. ICIMOD's root is in science and evidence, so it sees itself as neutral. And so we generate data, models, and studies to guide smarter planning. And here on the slide, you will see several of the more recent studies that we have been conducting, and the Indus River Basin Assessment is proceeding through this year. And we see these science-based tools are all about empowering better, more sustainable water management and climate resilience. And so through these basin networks, what have we delivered so far? So we've been able to kickstart basin level climate action. Of course, there is still a long way to go, but we've been able to kick this off. We've been able to facilitate in a neutral way dialogue across the basin countries. And of course, we've leveraged more recently $10 million for Pakistan of adaptation funding to mobilize this funding for river basin resilience. And we also are now taking some of these science diplomacy dialogues through into the next step to discuss regional water cooperation. So at a regional level, about 5 years ago, we brought together our ministers and we developed the HKH call to action, and our ministers signed this action and embarked on a journey to strengthen regional cooperation. Now, in our region, this is not an easy task, but we have been meeting regularly. We've been facilitating a high-level task force that comprises of representatives from all our 8 countries to identify how we can move forward with a regional mechanism. This is not an easy journey, but it is one that we are very committed to, and one in which ICIMOD is well placed to facilitate. We need to build trust, and trust comes from rooting the discussions in objective science and evidence. And so far, we've been facilitating dialogues, science policy dialogues on air quality. These are now becoming science policy investment dialogues. And we've been looking at the science and how we can take that into collaborative action on air quality management in the Indo-Gangetic plain. We've constituted thematic working groups on specific issues relating to air quality, whether that's monitoring to ensure that the standards are consistent across our countries, or looking at air pollution solutions, or looking at investment vehicles. We've also been meeting with the HKH Cryo Hub, and the intention with the Cryo Hub is to emulate a similar construct to how we've managed to move forwards on air quality management. So to set up a series of thematic working groups on cryosphere with cryosphere specialists from across the region to discuss, for instance, how we can standardize monitoring, how we can more effectively share data, how we can develop more effective tools for risk management. We've also been engaging with parliamentarians in national policy and legislation. We've had various exchange visits between Nepal and Bhutan, and this has resulted in Bhutan's Green Governance Committee providing recommendations to tackle increasing food insecurity in Bhutan. Working with parliaments is extremely important if we want to affect policy and legislative change. At the global level, we've been working on global science diplomacy. We've been present at the various UNFCCC fora, but just to flag that this is not about ICIMOD. In these fora, we are there to support our regional member countries, to strengthen their advocacy, to strengthen their voice, to provide our regional member countries with the kind of science and evidence they need to be stronger in the negotiations. So here we are in Baku last year, again supporting our regional member countries and the negotiations. We've also been doing similar kinds of activities with IPCC, ensuring that authors and scientists from our region are part of AR7 and are part of the various IPBES assessments and other global assessments. And we believe this is extremely important that authors and experts are from the regional member countries of the Hindu Kush Himalaya are involved in these. And of course, let's not forget about local science diplomacy. So I've been talking a lot about the high mountains. The mid hills are are fed by rainfall and groundwater rather than the glaciers. But let's not forget that these are also critical ecosystems. And in these areas, springs are the main sources of water for the mountain communities, and yet they are drying extremely fast. And so we've been piloting together with various governments from our region, various technologies and tools for spring shed management. It's a very complex issue with hydrogeology, but there are measures that we are bringing to our governments and partners in our countries to revive springs. And of course, we've also been looking at other means of local science diplomacy, so ensuring that we can share information across borders. Of course, all of you will know how contentious this is in our region, but at the community level, we've instituted community-based flood early warning systems. As are often in trans-border areas, communities have cultural ties, and communication is easier. And so this is an example of a community-based flood early warning system that we instituted between Nepal and India. And finally, these images are quite striking. This is the Yala Glacier in Langtang in Nepal, and it has lost 66% of its area since 1974. So it's almost retreated 1 kilometer, 784 meters, and the images speak for themselves. And of course, once the glacier has retreated, it is not coming back until we face another ice age, which may be in a million years' time. So we held this year a tribute to the Yala Glacier. Yala connects past, present, and an uncertain future. We still don't really know exactly what the impacts will be of disappearing glaciers, but the figures are pretty staggering. If we keep at if we reach 3 degrees, most of our glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalaya will be lost. But these glaciers are revered by communities. There are strong cultural and religious ties to the ice. They've also been studied by scientists over the decades, and now they are fading fast. So this is an image of a tribute that we had to the disappearance of the Yala Glacier a few weeks ago. And so we're here in Dushanbe to really strengthen the voice of the Hindu Kush Himalaya. We want to launch a call for preserving the glaciers. And so we will be launching this call on our website shortly. And some of the issues that we will be tackling as part of this launch is a call to scale up urgent investment in cryosphere monitoring, risk management, and early warning systems. I think what I've spoken to already today is solid evidence of the critical need for investment in this region. It is one of the most underinvested regions in the world. We need to strengthen regional and global cooperation to tackle these transboundary risks. We've made the first steps towards that, but we need to do far more. We need to advance interdisciplinary research and multi-hazard risk assessment. Again, these are complex issues, but we need to move forward. We need to get over the inertia of the past and look at new methods and new innovations in risk assessment. We need to accelerate innovation, expand scholarships and scholarship, and establish incentives to sustain a new generation of mountain scientists and leaders within our region. And we need to prioritize the lived realities of the most affected communities in all relevant policies, plans, and budgets. And finally, we need active, coordinated, and cross-sectoral responses to deliver climate resilience at scale and speed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Isabella Coziel from ICIMOD. I think a very interesting foundation to set for the following discussions in this in the side event. I think you've highlighted, I think out of the more than 50,000 glaciers that we have in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, only 28 have field monitoring, and I think that's a telling statistic. Also, very interesting to hear about the initiatives of the important work that's being done by ICIMOD, including the thematic knowledge hubs, the work on air pollution, which of course is linked to glaciers as well. So thank you, I think, for setting a very solid foundation for the discussions. The next item in the agenda is again with our ICIMOD partners for launch of what's called as the HKH Key Asks, which is a booklet. May I just hand over back to Isabella for launch of the. Oh, okay, all right, okay. So we'll proceed with the panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to moderate this panel. Please allow me to introduce my co-moderator, Dr. Faisal Moin Kamer, who's the intervention manager at the Resilient River Basins from ICIMOD, who's joining us online. At the outset, please just allow me to recap the objectives of this side event and of this panel discussion. Today, we are exploring how science diplomacy, regional collaboration, and integrated adoption strategies can drive action to safeguard glaciers and to enhance resilience in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. We've seen from the earlier sessions and the presentation the critical role that, of course, glaciers play in sustaining both lives and livelihoods in the region, and of course the serious threats that are posed by their melting to, I would say, the very survival of the region. Also, the issue of glaciers melting is cross-cutting. It involves not only different sectors like agriculture, energy, WASH, urban planning, transport, but also different stakeholders and different social segments. And thus, through this panel discussion, we would really like to highlight the value of systems-based approaches, inclusive science policy dialogues, as well as cross-border cooperation. And we'd like to take this opportunity to delve deeper into the role of some key stakeholders and to showcase some successful initiatives, such as those engaging academia, development partners, civil society, the youth, and local communities. I would like to introduce 7 distinguished panelists who are joining us today, both in person and online. We have with us Mr. Murad Khuja. He's a researcher from the National Academy of Sciences of Tajikistan. We also have Dr. Chiangong Jiang, the strategic group lead of climate and environmental risks at ICIMOD, also joining us, on site here. We have Ms. Sampriti Mukherjee from the super pollutants portfolio at the Clean Air Fund, again joining us on site here. And then we have Dr. Anamika Barua, professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, in India, who's joining us online. We have Ms. Aisha Khan, Chief Executive of Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change, with us online. We have Ms. Suza Manandhar, Small Earth Nepal, representing the youth, who's with us online. And finally, Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, who's Chief of the Disaster Risk Reduction Section of SCAP, who is joining us online. So since we are, running a bit short of time, I'd request the panelists to perhaps keep their interventions to around 5 minutes. So let me start off with our first panelist. I would like to invite Mr. Murad Khuja from the National Academy of Sciences of Tajikistan. Why is melting of glaciers important for the context of Tajikistan? And what do you think are the key areas of scientific research related to glaciers that are being undertaken by the National Academy of Sciences of Tajikistan? And what are some of the findings of this research? So we'd love to hear that from you. So I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, dear Professor, for the questions. Actually, the glaciers, study glaciers is very important because about 80% water Central Asia is coming from glaciers, snow, and permafrost, with 65% coming from Tajikistan's mountains. So based on our observations, we found also impact of climate change on a high altitude in high mountain Asia. It's becoming retreat in glacier area, glacier ablation zone. So we observed about 2,000 small glacier in low altitude. They are just disappear because the impact of climate in small glacier is very fast. So the water resources is very important for countries, for Central Asia's countries like Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, also including Afghanistan, because this economy depend on agriculture, irrigation, hydropower. So if glacier become retreating, so there will be decline in river runoff. So according to our study, we observed glacier in Pamir. It shows so during from 1968 to 2023, the glacier, for example, Medvedev Glacier, they lost terminus position about 1.6 kilometers. So it's also the impact on river runoff. So it's becoming decreasing in river runoff. We also use hydrological modeling to know how it will be changed in future, how will be impact of climate will influence on glacier in future in river runoff and how it becoming. So based in our research, we found also under climate scenarios by the end of the century, the glacier will lost the area about 77%. So exactly, it's very important to decrease greenhouse gases and to collaborate with countries, downstream regions to decrease greenhouse gases. So continue monitoring of glaciers. So climate change also will change the seasonal snow melting. Is essential for irrigation. So, and according to our observations, the melting of snow melting time and glacier melting time is becoming early from the peak of river runoff from July becoming to June and end of May. So during this time, the countries, downstream countries, they don't need so much water. It's should be in July and August. So that's why the glaciers is very important to study, to observe it, and to collaborate with countries in Central Asia for decreasing greenhouse gases and manage water resources. So
Thank you. Thank you so much for your enlightening remarks, Mr. Muradov. I think putting in context really the importance of glaciers for Tajikistan, and I think very important and relevant research that's happening. Let me move on to our second panelist today. So Dr. Chiangong Jiang from ICIMOD. I'd like to ask that, building on ICIMOD's extensive research in the Hindu Kush Himalayas and the third pole, what strategic scientific collaborations are needed to better understand and manage the cascading risks of glacial retreat and implications for water systems? And how do you think scientific partnerships across countries can contribute to co-developing practical basin-level resilience strategies? So about 5 minutes, Dr. Jiang.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I think you also raise up a very important question. So when we talk about the glacial retreat and also these problems, I think in these regions, we know the mountains. So in very small, like spatial scales, it crosses borders. And also what happens in the upstream actually impact not only the local places, but also the regions or the downstream places. So this is very, very important. I think just as our Deputy Director General Isabella already mentioned that actually in ISMOD, we work across these different regional countries, and we want to really unify different stakeholders together to work to address these issues. So here I want to really emphasize 3 points that we are working on. So the first thing is that we are working on to harmonize the scientific monitoring. So we know that science should inform us the knowledge and also the fact. So what will be a trend and what will be the impact? But we also notice that in different places, so we don't have that harmonized or standardized method to really watch the glaciers or to really watch the glacier. So what has been changed? So we're also working really hard to bring or to introduce a standardized, harmonized method to our regional countries. So let us to use a standardized method to evaluate, to monitor our glaciers. So the second thing is we want to enhance the capacity building. So we know that across these HKH regions or other mountain regions, so different countries have different capacities. So some of the countries, let's say in HKH region, China, India, they are leading the cross-field science, and they have more or strong capacities. So this is also the thing we want to exchange this capacity. We want to exchange the knowledge. So we bring the scientists, we bring the stakeholder together, we exchange the science and knowledge. So this will help to really raise up the capacity here in this region, address these transboundary risks. So the last thing I want to emphasize is that we really need to do the science exchange and technology exchange. So because here, and data sharing is also important, because here we know that something happening in the upstream will impact the downstream. But because it's a transboundary issue, sometimes the data sharing is not works really good. So in ICIMOD, we also have the regional information service system. So we want to bring the different parts of these regions together to really contribute to our regional information service, to show a larger picture, to show what happened in upstreams, and also to link what happened in the upstream to really have the impact on the downstream. So I think these are 3 things. So harmonize the monitoring standards and also enhancing capacity and strengthening cooperations, so we can better support the coordinated regional efforts to manage risks, to adapt to the glacial retreat. So I think ISMOD will also continue to leverage our strengths and work with all stakeholders to address this global challenge. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jiang, again for just reiterating, outlining, this perspective based on ICIMOD's extensive research in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. Let us now move on to our third panelist, who again is on site, Ms. Sampriti Mukherjee from Clean Air Fund. So, Sampriti, black carbon emissions are a significant accelerator of glacier melt. So what regional actions, whether scientific, regulatory, or community-based, can be undertaken now to curb black carbon impacts in the third pole? And how do you think science diplomacy can help in aligning clean air and cryosphere preservation agendas together? So over to you, Sampriti.
Thank you, and I hope I'm audible. Great. So, thank you everybody for this critical opportunity. In terms of the role of Hindu Kush Himalayas and the link between black carbon, I think Isabella has very clearly talked about why the Hindu Kush Himalaya is such a critically climate sensitive region. I want to focus a bit more about the black carbon emissions and its link in terms of climate degradation. Black carbon is a short-lived climate pollutant emitted from incomplete combustion of biomass, fossil fuels, and waste. When it settles on snow and ice, it reduces reflectivity and accelerates snow and ice melt. It also contributes to localized atmospheric warming, particularly in high mountain areas. The recent Clean Air Fund report highlights that in regions like the Tibetan Plateau, black carbon contributes to about 26% of glacier melt during the summer months. And in the Arctic, it is responsible for about 14% of warming and 20% of snow and ice loss over the 20th century. Clearly, black carbon is not just an air quality problem, it is also a glacier preservation issue. And now coming back to you, Anshuman, about your question about the science, regulatory, and community-based actions. I feel in terms of science, there's a clear sort of focus we need to build on building the evidence base and closing data gaps. We urgently need expanded black carbon monitoring in the Hindu Kush Himalayas, both atmospheric and surface deposition, particularly in Nepal, Bhutan, and the Indo-Gangetic Plain of India. We need integrated cryosphere air quality models that can help us map the direct links between emissions, transport, and glacier melt. And we need greater investment in attribution science so that policymakers can clearly see the link between sectors and regions that are driving cryosphere risks. At Clean Air Fund, we are sort of developing our science team and also developing similar grants. For example, one of our studies will estimate transport of black carbon from emission regions of the Hindu Kush Himalayas, accounting for local meteorology and terrain. The study will also estimate black carbon on snow and effects on glacier melting and propose sectoral mitigation options for black carbon. In terms of regulatory, I think that's a huge sort of gap that we currently have because black carbon is right now is not present in national and regional policies to the effect that it should. Only 13 countries worldwide currently only have black carbon in their nationally determined contributions. This is a missed opportunity for fast climate gains. Countries in or linked to cryosphere regions like Nepal, India, Bhutan, and even Tajikistan can specially focus on reducing emissions from black carbon-rich sectors. And this will, of course, not take away the focus from decarbonization. In fact, it will just promote decarbonization as well as reducing black carbon emissions. And there is a clear link to sort of addressing the national air quality and energy strategy, especially in policies around, say, transport, brick-in regulations, residential cooking, and open burning. This will not only improve the air quality as well as help in glacier preservation. And community-based, we need a clear shift to clean cooking, heating, and lighting solutions in mountain communities. I know ISIMID is working very closely with communities on this, and CAF is also trying to promote solutions on that. We also need indigenous and local knowledge to be integrated into glacier preservation plans. One major barrier that is present to implement all of these solutions is access to targeted climate finance to reduce emissions from black carbon-rich sectors. Despite the urgency of reducing air pollution, improving glacier preservations, only 0.1% of air quality funding currently is directly directed at black carbon emissions. And this is a critical gap. We need to plug it fast because they have clear co-benefits for glacier preservation, health, and livelihoods. And coming to your last question, Anshuman, about science diplomacy, I feel science diplomacy has two clear sort of benefits. One is sort of to align the clean air and cryosphere agendas to build bridges across borders and building trust across sectors. What we need in the Hindu Kush Himalaya context is that we need to support regional research collaboration across cryosphere zones like India, Nepal, Bhutan, China to harmonize data and co-develop glacier protection strategies. For instance, at CAF, most of our science grants involve scientists from South Asian region and beyond, like ISIMED, Dhaka University, and IIT Bombay. We also have forums like ISIMED, Malé Declaration, SACEP, UNESCAP REPAP platform, which are key spaces to embed black carbon and glacier preservation into shared agendas. And through science diplomacy, we can promote joint emissions reduction goals, shared monitoring frameworks, harmonizing policies, and early warning systems, as Dr. Zhang mentioned, for climate and water-related risks. And I'll just end with saying that while we know that climate change knows no boundaries, neither does black carbon. We need to think globally, plan regionally, and act nationally. And in this International Year of Glacier Preservation, we have the rare chance to elevate both glacier preservation and the role of black carbon in cryosphere discussions and to turn science into a coordinated policy discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sampriti. I think for that perspective on, I think the role of super pollutants and black carbon, and I think its close relation to glacier melting. You know, we have an ongoing partnership between ESCAP and Clean Air Fund also, and that's in relation to furthering regional cooperation on air pollution, and you know, we acknowledge the support provided by Clean Air Fund for you know, building an online platform for addressing regional cooperation on air pollution, including the aspects of black carbon as well. So thank you, Sampriti. We will now move on to our next panelist who will be speaking online. So we have Dr. Anamika Barua from IIT Guwahati. So Dr. Barua, how can science diplomacy and shared water governance frameworks be strengthened in politically sensitive basins in the third pole? And what do you think is the role of academic institutions in bridging scientific evidence with regional policy dialogues to advance equitable and climate resilient water cooperation? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. All my co-panelists have already actually spoken about what is science diplomacy and why it is important, but let me in very simple terms reiterate what's been already discussed. I think science diplomacy involves using scientific collaborations to enhance diplomatic relations between nations. And it is particularly critical now in politically sensitive basins in the third pole, where shared resources, particularly the transboundary rivers, are essential for regional stability, food security, and environment health. So how we can strengthen science diplomacy in such politically sensitive river basins. And so, as again mentioned by Sampriti, that it's very important that we have joint research programs which transcend political tensions, focused on shared challenges such as impact of climate change on rivers, because these are related to food and water security, and these are concerns for all riparian nations, irrespective of their geographical position or military power. What is important to realize that science diplomacy can actually inform treaties and agreements on water allocation, environmental flows, and also pollution control. It can also go far in the sense that it can shape foreign policies for providing objective evidence to support collaborative solution. One classic example actually of science diplomacy is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We know that how it unites scientists across the world and from bringing them around the world to produce evidence that supports global agreements, for example, the Paris Agreement. However, a similar collaborative platform for the third pole's transboundary rivers is lacking. I know there are already efforts, ongoing efforts from ISIMOD, but I still feel that, we need to have platforms akin to like IPCC, which could serve as a neutral space for dialogue, enabling nations to set aside political differences, address shared water governance challenges, because this would go actually beyond just scientific data. It would become a platform also to facilitate people-to-people connections, bringing together researchers, students, and policymakers to build mutual respect and understanding. And I think this is so important, particularly in the fractured geopolitical landscape that we are seeing now, where, at least even while political differences may persist, the communities, the people can say that, weaponizing shared resources like water benefits no one. Coming to your next question, Anshuman, I think role of academic institution is extremely important in producing neutral evidence-based science that bridges regional policy dialogues and fosters cooperation. The emphasis here is on neutrality, which is, I think, under a lot of challenge today. Neutral science transcends personal opinions and ideological biases. It strives for, bringing trusted, unbiased, and universally applicable science. This is very important because, every individual, be he or she be a scientist or not, everybody do have a kind of ideology. But it is extremely important and also very challenging that how do we keep our personal, biases, our ideology away when we are developing the science, when we are talking about evidences, because you may gain short-term benefit by having science which is biased based on your understanding or your ideology, but in the long term, such kind of polarized science actually does not provide sustainable solution. So particularly in the realm of transboundary water governance, what I'm trying to say is that neutral and interdisciplinary approaches are vital. They shift the focus from nationalistic narratives to objective facts, fostering trust among nations. And this trust is essential to design equitable and climate resilient framework, because that considers not just how water flows, how much it flows, but also how and who depends on it. So by addressing both the scientific and socioeconomic dimensions, I think academic institutions become an important drivers of cooperation and sustainable governance, particularly now when political landscape is going through several challenges. So in a sense, I want to emphasize that science diplomacy and fostering people-to-people connections are the need of the hours in these difficult times, and academic institutions should take a very, very important, or should play a very, very important role in doing this. Over to you, Anshuman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Barua. I think a very important point about the role of academic institutions and really emphasizing the objectivity and the neutrality and the core scientific aspects in terms of cooperation within the region and across countries. So thank you. We will now move on to our next speaker, also joining online. I'd like to invite Ms. Aisha Khan from the Civil Society Coalition of Climate Change, CSCCC. Ms. Khan, I would like to ask that from a civil society perspective, how can community voices and local knowledge systems be better integrated into regional strategies for glacier preservation and water resilience? And what do you think are the opportunities for multi-stakeholder partnerships to enhance trust and cooperation across borders in the third pole? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Very grateful to ECMOD for organizing this conversation and inviting me to be part of it. I have been working in the mountain community, so what I share with you comes from my personal experience of observation over 20 years, and also backed by science and knowledge that I have studied over this period. So mountain communities essentially in South Asia share a very common topography. They're marked by variations in range, they have small land holdings, they face harsh winters, they have poor infrastructure, and they have limited access to resources, technology, and alternative livelihood options. Of course, having been associated with ECMOD and having read a lot of the science that's come out on climate change, I do understand that there's a large body of work that is available to us now to see how nature and man are interacting and modifying each other. So we do know that we need balance and harmony between human activity and nature. And if this delicate balance in fragile ecosystems is disrupted, there will be chaos. Now, we know that science gives us facts. It is based on evidence. But how is this knowledge communicated to communities at the grassroots level is what makes the difference. Pure science, technical data, and climate technologies don't really resonate with communities who struggle and survive on a daily basis to access the basic goods and services for their essential needs. And this is where I think something that is missing and needs to be brought in is the role of culture, tradition, beliefs, and even superstitions. We think that the mind is rational and the heart is emotional, but the truth is that our feelings inform our thinking. We will do things that we believe in without even asking for any proof, because stories and myths around them have been wired into our thinking from childhood. No science can do that. So talking about nature-based solutions, we have to also go back to reviving old traditions that will help us to understand why and how we need to relate with nature right now. And talking about nature-based solutions with communities is very easy because these are people who have lived in these lands. They are familiar with the cyclic rhythm of nature, and they are the perfect setting for living laboratories to study human change and behavior for adaptation. Let me just, say a couple of more things about communities living in the third pole. When you face threats to your life and livelihood, you respond to solutions very quickly. And the third pole country mountain communities are feeling the heat. They have not really caused climate change. They consume only as many resources as they need for their survival. They do not waste or litter, and yet they have to pay a very high price for the extravagance of others. So what I feel very strongly is that we need to address this not just at the social, economic, and environmental level, but as part of our moral responsibility. These communities are one of the most polite, dignified, and resilient come across. And you've talked about, science and diplomacy here. So I want to bring this in to say that diplomacy is not only about foreign policy and diplomats engaging in these conversations. It's about people. And when you engage in diplomacy, I think the purpose is using an art of conversation to reach agreement on contentious issues and to create goodwill so that we can promote interactions in other areas. So I do feel that we need to create more opportunities for interaction between mountain communities and use them as our ambassadors to save our snow. Connecting and networking across borders, sharing traditions, stories, even myths will help us not only to reclaim the sanctity of the mountains and restore the dignity of mountain communities. I think it will also connect communities and create those open knowledge platforms that we've talked about. So I think in all, whatever was spoken and shared by previous speakers kind of gels and brings the people to people. And Anamika spoke about that at length, and I fully endorse that when you want diplomacy, it has to be at the local level first to feed into your national policy, and then you take it outward. So you need to zoom in before you zoom out. And once we start doing that by connecting mountain communities, we have a much better chance to use the science data information and to get communities and cross-border countries to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Aisha Khan, for, I think, those grounded perspectives. And again, I think emphasizing the importance of really, bottom-up processes and ensuring, due reflection of the experiences, the needs and priorities of local communities. Thank you so much. We will move to the next panelist. So I'd like to invite Ms. Suza Manandhar from Small Earth, Nepal. She's our youth representative joining online. So Ms. Manandhar, as let's say, as the youth representative, we say you as the future custodians of the third pole. What role do you envision for youth networks in glacier preservation, in science communication, and in regional advocacy? And what specific actions would you propose to engage young leaders more meaningfully in shaping transboundary climate solutions? We look forward to your thoughts on that. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Everyone has already said that how important the glaciers are for the people in the Himalayas. And one point that I would like to add on to the importance is that the culture and the cultural significance it holds for the mountain communities as well. And in context to the glaciers being lifeline of the Himalayas and the amount of emotional and cultural significance it holds for the mountain communities, I think youth here plays a pivotal role in bridging the gap between the three worlds of science, community, and the policymakers. We do understand the emotions and the hardships and the needs of the local communities, and then we also understand the hardcore data portions of research and the results of that particular research. So we can actually change the hardcore research results into such simplified simplified forms, so that the communities and the policymakers can actually understand those results and come up with solutions that are actually needed for a particular community. Along with that, it's about also about us being very courageous to answer to question about some challenges, some challenging questions to the global leaders and the policymakers. And for that, I think one of the things that everyone needs to understand and think of is that the youth should actually be taken as partners and collaborators rather than just being spectators or participants during the discussions or during this forums. And we should be given chance to be vocal about our thoughts in governance and planning, and then also in formulations of different policies throughout our national as well as regional as well as in the global platforms as well. So I think it's more about not just about us being someone who is just participants during these discussions, but seeing us as being capable enough to provide our thoughts as collaborators and partners during the very early stages of different projects and different planning procedures. And I think it's the youths now have more connections from all around the world because of the digitalizations and all the social media networks. And one of the best examples of the movement that we can create is Fridays for Future, which is a mass movement of about climate action and making people understand about the impacts and the changes that climate can have in the future. And also I think it's about collaborations across, not just across different borders, but collaborations in intergenerational collaborations. So there must be experts and then also experts and then youths coming together to for learning as well as co-developing of ideas. And one of the things that we at the Small Earth Nepal do is that we have experts from different fields, different disciplines, and then we have researchers, early career researchers, and youths from different fields. And we have retired professionals and experts with a lot of knowledge and experience in this domain. We come together, we brainstorm for all the possible solutions towards different problems, and then come up with different ideas to tackle it. So we are also looking towards so we came up with this idea of maybe we could actually use monasteries as potential site for bridging this gap, this in situ data gap that we have in the Himalayas. So there are so this collaborations among different generations will help us come up with new ideas. And I think youth should actually be seen as knowledge bearers, innovators, and partners and collaborators rather than just being spectators or someone who is just a participant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Panandar. And I think it's a great note to end your comments on, is, youth being seen as torchbearers really for, carrying our aspirations, forward. So I know we're a bit behind schedule. We have Dr. Sanjay Srivastav as our next speaker. May I check if Sanjay is online or not? Okay. Perhaps I think Sanjay may have some connection issues. So if he joins, maybe we can come back to him quickly. But for now, I think just we've heard very good perspectives from I think all the panelists. Just looking at all the very dimensions of the issue of glacial melt, and the issues that are core to it. And I think we've really seen how the issue of glacier melt really is central to sustainable development, and really how it's linked really to all SDGs and all targets in one way or the other. So we now come perhaps to the Q&A part. I would like to open the floor both here in the room as well as for those online for any questions and answers for our panelists. Are there any participants who'd like to put forward any specific questions for our group? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's check if we had any questions in the online chat. I know Aisha had reflected, some aspects, I think, relating to the presentation from ISIMOD earlier, and about, I think, the issue with polarization of science and the importance of people-to-people contact. So Dr. Jang, I know you had, I think, mentioned in your, remarks about, the extensive work that's, being done at ISIMOD. And, from the point of view of strengthening, scientific partnerships across countries, are there any other, country level instances for cooperation or partnerships, based on ISIMOD's experience that, you would like to share? I know, several have been highlighted in the work that's been done. Are there any other, key examples that you might like to share in terms of your partnerships with countries at country level?
Okay. I would like to share one example currently ISIMOD is working, because we know that ISIMOD have 8 regional member countries, and just now I highlight that. So different countries will have different capacities. And now we're working close with the Bhutan government. We're working with is the Ministry of Meteorology and Hydrology, and we are deeply engaged in design or to help them to provide technical support to design their 5-year planning. And also we are sending experts. We're invite some experts from Nepal, from other sides, to sending experts to them to help them to really monitor the glacier. And also we start to help them to monitor the permafrost, because we know that permafrost is also a big issue, and it's not being well monitored in these HH regions, except in the inland Tibetan Plateau. It's monitored by China, and China has very good capacity. And this year, we're also considering about to invite some experts from China to help these regions to elevate the capacity to monitoring and studies permafrost. I think this is also our plan. And we hope that we really work together to bring the technology and advanced experience in cross-river monitoring here to help these regional member countries to really know how the cross-river changes, how to address these challenges. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jang. I think maybe we have place for one more question. Again, I think we're just waiting for comments. But let me just go back to Dr. Anamika Barua. So again, I think on the point of the role of academia, really in bringing in the neutrality and the objectivity aspects into into cooperation among countries on glacier melt. Are there, any specific examples? Because, within the context of the Hindu Kush Himalayas, or, through your institution, IIT Guwahati, where, this has really been done in an effective way, is having been able to lend that objectivity and neutrality to the process of cooperation and discussions, either within countries or across countries. So any examples that you think you could offer would be interesting to listen to.
Yeah, so what we are now trying to do is that, as we know that we are in the verge of signing the Ganges Treaty, hopefully next year. So in that context, what we are working together is to understand how the disappearing of smaller glaciers is going to have an impact in the future, say 2050 or even 2100, making a projection to see that if these availability of water, say for example, that when the glacier would melt, it will, for the short run, it might have a lot of flow, but in the long run, we will see that there is lesser flow. So what kind of treaty we should be, looking at? What kind of negotiation would Bangladesh and India should actually do? So the idea is, it's difficult as an academician for us to tell them that this is the wording or this is what you should do. But what we are trying to do is give them the facts and figure, which is openly accessible for both the country, for both the country to see and understand what could be future water challenges. But that is something that I feel is very neutral in the aspect that we are not talking about only India, but we are talking about both the countries, because it's important that through water we can keep our relationship better and alive. The other thing that I would also like to highlight is that a lot of emphasis, and I think Aisha also mentioned, is given to track one diplomacy. And unfortunately, we have been investing a lot on track one diplomacy, bringing political parties together to have negotiation, which are very, very time consuming. The transaction cost is very high. I think it is important that if scientific communities can actually come together, even if there are very bad political landscape, if they can come together and produce science together, in my personal experience, I do see that science matter. If that science can be brought up by showing that with limited data, with limited collaboration, we could do so much. If you can allow us to collaborate more, we can actually produce better science, which can help you in fact, negotiating your future treaties. Yeah, I'm going to stop here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those additional perspectives. I think we're close to, I think, the finish time. So maybe we'll wrap up the panel. Just once again, a big thank you to our panelists for, I think, sharing their very interesting perspectives. May I invite my co-moderator, Dr. Faisal Kamar from ICIMOD, to just maybe share in a couple of minutes any brief reflections that he may have on the panel discussion. And after that, we will hand over to Professor Shahbaz Khan for the wrap up. So, Dr. Faisal, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anshuman. So I tried capturing some of the messages which were spoken very well by our esteemed panelists. So we started with Dr. Muradov. He talked about the glacial importance in Central Asia, and then particularly Tajikistan. He mentioned, which figures are very common, that 80% of the small glaciers have already melted and gone away, which is the number he mentions about 2000. And then he mentioned that in Central Asia, it is about 80% of the water for agricultural irrigation is coming from snow melt, glacial melt, or so on. There is a similar figure for about 65%. He did mention about the importance of this water for Central Asia and Tajikistan, and also mentioned some of the studies his institute is carrying. So then we moved to Dr. Chan, who is leading the science work of ICIMOD. And then we talk about that, what work is ICIMOD conducting in context of protecting those glaciers. He highlighted the importance of three very important initiatives that ICIMOD is involved in: harmonizing the monitoring, and then they are involved in capacity building, and then most importantly, they are effectively engaging regional member countries on science, data, and technology exchanges. so which is very important for collective action. So another very important area of black carbon, very less emphasized in our conversations most of the time. Dr. Samriti mentioned about the dual threat of black carbon. It not only affects the communities, but it's also contributing on accelerated glacial melt. And then she mentioned about it has contribution about 26% contribution in glacial melt in Tibetan region, and then similar. She talked about emphasizing on strengthening science base of drivers of black carbon, so that sectoral drivers can be identified and can be addressed. And her institute is actively working on that. And then I also did mention about lack of mention of black carbon in NDCs. There are only 13 countries mentioning those, and then there is a need for including these aspects in there. And then again, mentioning that leveraging science diplomacy for collective work on black carbon. Dr. Anna Mika, who's a great champion of transboundary cooperation. When she talked about science diplomacy, she mentioned that it's very important to have neutral transboundary platforms supported by science. And she did mention of role of, as an example, IPCC, and then similar bodies can be placed in the HKH region for having neutral platform supported by science. And then she did mention that our older transboundary agreements doesn't have a strong science base in our agreements. Probably this is the time that we produce science, which also takes forward into our agreements. Yeah, she's a great champion of transboundary cooperation. And continuing with our next speaker, Aisha Khan, who has worked both at local level as well as another champion of transboundary cooperation. She talked about leveraging local culture, knowledge, in the transboundary communities, and then working around that, building trust on transboundary cooperation. Then she also mentioned about local level community adaptation and fostering people-to-people diplomacy. Moving forward to youth, Susana Manander picked some very pertinent points of inclusion of youth in our conversations, partnering from the start and engaging youth from the beginning, and so on. And she did mention about value of highlighting local hubs for engaging youth in those conversations. So that's the kind of summary I was able to capture. Thank you very much, Dr. Anshuman, and please take the conversation forward.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal, for those, I think, important reflections. I think we've had a few subsequent messages and chats, I think, especially on how to make knowledge actionable. But I think we're out of time. So I think maybe at this point I will just hand over to Professor Shahbaz Khan for the wrap-up remarks and the closing reflections and recommendations. So, Professor Khan, over to you.
Thank you, dear Dr. Anshuman, and also dear Dr. Faisal and all the panelists. It has been really a wonderful dialogue, I would say, among colleagues, and an excellent keynote address. So we have a very solid basis to continue to promote the knowledge of cryosphere. So in my opinion, just to bring it to some 5 actionable points, we need to establish a cryosphere knowledge and action platform for HKH region. This platform should build on interoperable, open access, science policy data, knowledge, to help monitor glacier dynamics better than ever before. And also, very importantly, we need to have a greater ability to forecast water-related risks and coordinate joint research. And we need now what we have been discussing, and a key movement in UNESCO is the open science. And this platform can benefit from institutions such as ECMOD, our Intergovernmental Hydrological Program National Committees, UNESCO Category 2 centers, and also very importantly, academic networks, which have been highlighted very nicely here. So this platform, I think, is an urgent thing. That's my first observation and recommendation. Secondly, to advance basin level science policy and science diplomacy, it's easier said than done, as has been highlighted by our esteemed panelists. We need to bring a better understanding among all stakeholders for Indus, Brahmaputra, and Ganges. This need to be done through scaling up of networks we already have. I would say ICMOD is a network as well. Also, Upper Indus Basin Network. We need to continue to bring scientific efforts across borders for cooperation among the basin countries and basin organizations and the better knowledge of Indus, Brahmaputra, and Ganges. And this needs joint assessments and early warning. So thirdly, I would say we need to institutionalize a regional science diplomacy forum. And that can be the role of Asia Pacific Water Forum, which has all the important players, and of course UNESCO and the wider UN system, and ESCAP being at the regional level. We need to have annual HKH Water and Cryosphere Science Diplomacy Forum as an ongoing effort between governments, researchers, society, and young people. And we need to continue to link with UN water conferences, Convention on Parties, Decade of Action on Cryosphere. I would also suggest as a key point is we need to have more investment. This is a time we are struggling with investments. We need more investments. We need more to mobilize investment for glacial risk reduction and nature-based solutions. And that needs regional funding pipelines. We need to work harder than ever before. And importantly, as has been said, it's about people bringing community-based, nature-based solutions and looking up for innovative solutions like artificial glaciers, also climate resilient irrigation, and indigenous early warning system based on local knowledge. Lastly, number 5, I would say we need to continue to empower young people and local communities as champions across borders, as champions of peace and sustainable development. And this is critical both for the United Nations the systems efforts, but the greater efforts of everyone. And we need to build a capacity of young people in participatory science. Transboundary dialogue and what does it really means? How do we share technologies across borders? And especially the use of artificial intelligence, the generative AI. Maybe generative AI can help build a knowledge base and the platform I mentioned before for the cryosphere monitoring, cryosphere understanding, and we bring greater leaderships from professional and community leaders. So those are some of the observations I could make, but congratulations again to all the organizers on behalf of I would say the community, which is anticipating us to do better than ever before, and wonderful work which has come together in this a very important side event. So on behalf of Asia Pacific Water Forum, I congratulate you all. And I look forward to continue to have this dialogue as a concerned HKH citizen, as a farmer who is anticipating greater cooperation for better resilience of communities and people who need water, who need this knowledge, and who need to be able to cope with their situations. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful forum. Thank you. Back to Anshuman.
Thank you, Professor Khan, and I think a very apt note to end on. I mean, this dialogue is really a step, and not an end in itself. And we'll look forward to continuing our work together and joining hands to, address the threat of glacier melt and building the resilience of the underserved and marginalized communities that are most at risk from this threat. We're completely out of time, but once again, on behalf of all the co-organizers, please allow me to thank all the participants, both here in person as well as those joining online, and as well as with thanks for your patience with some of the technical issues we've had. But your contributions are much appreciated, and we look forward to carrying this dialogue forward in various other ways as well. Thank you, and wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.